Ford just flipped the auto industry upside down, again. But this time, it's not just another new model or flashy concept. What Ford just did has triggered a full-blown meltdown across the US auto market. Dealers are panicking, competitors are scrambling, and consumers are watching prices drop faster than anyone thought possible. This isn't a small market shift. It's a total reset of the American car industry. It all started with a bold, unexpected move. Ford announced a sweeping series of price reductions across multiple models, including the F-150, Explorer, and Mustang. But this wasn't a discount sale or a limited-time rebate. These are permanent cuts, deep, across-the-board reductions designed to ignite sales and crush the growing stockpile of unsold vehicles sitting on dealer lots. Some models saw price drops of over $8,000 overnight. And while buyers are celebrating, automakers are terrified. Because Ford didn't just slash prices, they rewrote the rules of the game. Here's the real kicker. Ford isn't doing this because of generosity. It's survival. The company's facing massive inventory buildup, with thousands of vehicles piling up across the US. Dealers are drowning in unsold trucks and SUVs as high interest rates and rising living costs crush consumer demand. Ford saw the writing on the wall, either cut prices now or risk losing billions later. So they made the move first, and that one decision just sent shockwaves through Detroit and beyond. Rival automakers like GM, Toyota, and Stellantis are now in a tight spot. Ford's aggressive pricing strategy means they can't sit still. If they keep prices high, buyers will flood toward Ford. But if they drop prices too, profits will collapse. It's a dangerous chain reaction, one that could push the entire auto market into chaos. This is exactly the kind of industry shift that separates survivors from casualties. And Ford just fired the first shot. But what's even more interesting is how Ford's doing this. They've restructured their pricing strategy from the ground up, cutting unnecessary dealership markups and reducing production costs by streamlining supply chains. Insiders say Ford's leadership team studied Tesla's direct-to-consumer model and decided to take a page from that playbook. But with a twist. Instead of going fully direct, Ford is pressuring dealers to play ball by offering them incentives to move vehicles faster, even if it means slashing their own margins. And this move couldn't have come at a more critical time. The US auto market is in turmoil. Interest rates are still sky-high, car loans are harder to get, and consumers are walking away from the insane price tags that became normal over the past 3 years. The average new vehicle price in America crossed $48,000 earlier this year, but Ford's move could drag that number down significantly, potentially resetting the entire pricing landscape. The ripple effect? Used car prices could tumble next. Meanwhile, Wall Street is watching this with a mix of shock and curiosity. Ford's bold strategy could either save the company or push it over the edge. Analysts are split. Some say this is Ford reclaiming its dominance, returning to its roots as the automaker for the working class. Others warn that Ford is playing a dangerous game, sacrificing profit margins in a desperate attempt to stay relevant in a slowing economy. Either way, the stakes couldn't be higher. But here's where things get really wild. This isn't just about pricing. Ford is also rethinking production. The company is quietly scaling back EV projects, delaying new battery plants, and shifting focus back to hybrids and affordable gas-powered vehicles. It's a complete 180 from the electric revolution narrative we've been hearing for years. Ford's executives seem to have realized something most automakers won't admit publicly. The EV market isn't growing fast enough to sustain massive investments. Consumers want value, not promises. And that's where Ford might just have outsmarted everyone, by doubling down on affordability and accessibility while others chase luxury EV margins. Ford could position itself as the brand that understands what middle America actually needs: trucks, SUVs, reliable sedans, and prices that make sense. In a market where the average American is struggling just to afford a car payment, that strategy could be a game changer. But here's the twist. This sudden flip by Ford might trigger an industry-wide war. GM and Stellantis are already facing pressure from dealers demanding similar incentives. Toyota and Honda, long praised for their stable pricing, may soon be forced to join in or risk losing serious market share. This could mark the beginning of a brutal price collapse that ripples through every corner of the industry, from suppliers to financiers. The last time we saw something like this was during the Great Recession, and even then, it didn't happen this fast. And the real victims might not be automakers. It could be the dealers themselves. Many of them loaded up on high-priced inventory, expecting demand to hold steady. Now, they're stuck with vehicles worth thousands less than what they paid the manufacturer. If Ford continues this strategy, it could lead to a wave of dealership losses, consolidations, and closures across the country. The domino effect could reshape how cars are sold in America forever. Ford's move isn't just a reaction, it's a declaration. They're signaling that the era of inflated car prices, massive dealer markups, and endless waiting lists is over. They're betting that the only way to survive this economic storm is to flip the market before the market flips them. It's bold, it's risky, and it's shaking the foundations of an industry that thought it was untouchable. And the craziest part? Ford's not done yet. There's another move coming that could change everything we thought we knew about how cars are built, priced, and sold in America. Inside sources are whispering that Ford's next phase involves re-engineering its entire production model, cutting out middle layers, automating more assembly lines, and using AI-driven logistics to reduce manufacturing costs by as much as 20%. If that's true, Ford won't just be lowering prices temporarily. They'll be locking in a long-term cost advantage that competitors will struggle to match. Imagine this: a new Ford F-150 that costs under $35,000, or a Ford Escape that starts below $25,000, prices we haven't seen in years. If Ford can pull that off, they'll force the rest of the industry to follow or risk being left behind. And that's exactly what's happening. Behind the scenes, GM executives are in emergency meetings, Toyota is re-evaluating U.S. production targets, and Stellantis is reportedly freezing dealer orders for certain trims until they figure out how to respond. It's panic mode in real time. But there's something deeper happening here. This isn't just about competition. This is about consumer trust. For years, buyers felt betrayed by automakers that jacked up prices, limited inventory, and let dealerships run wild with markups. Ford's move could be the first genuine sign that the industry is finally listening. It's a strategic gamble built on one powerful truth: Americans are done overpaying for cars. If Ford can rebuild that trust, they might win more than market share. They could win back the loyalty of an entire generation of drivers. However, the shift won't come without consequences. By slashing prices, Ford risks devaluing its own vehicles in the used market. Owners who bought last year's models at full price are already seeing resale values plummet, and that's creating tension among loyal customers. Dealers are furious, investors are nervous, and yet, Ford seems completely unfazed. CEO Jim Farley has hinted that this temporary pain is necessary to secure long-term dominance, suggesting Ford's playing a much bigger game than anyone realizes. And that game might just involve reshaping the entire auto economy around affordability and volume. Two things the industry has ignored for too long. For decades, car makers have chased profit margins by pushing luxury trims and unnecessary tech upgrades. Now, with economic reality hitting hard, those same strategies are crumbling. Ford's pivot signals the dawn of a new era, one where success depends on how many people you can put behind the wheel, not how much you can charge them for it. Interestingly, the government is watching closely too. With inflation squeezing households and the auto market being a key driver of consumer sentiment, Ford's pricing shift could have macroeconomic consequences. If prices keep falling, it could actually pull down inflation rates in the transportation sector, a ripple effect that might influence Federal Reserve decisions. In other words, Ford's move might end up impacting not just the car market, but the entire U.S. economy. But there's another layer most people aren't talking about: electric vehicles. Ford's recent EV strategy reversal has stunned analysts. Instead of racing toward full electrification, they're slowing down production of models like the F-150 Lightning and the Mustang Mach-E, two vehicles once touted as the future of Ford. Why? Because demand simply isn't there. Consumers want EVs, but not at the current prices. And Ford knows that until the battery supply chain becomes cheaper and more stable, it's smarter to pivot toward hybrids and affordable combustion models that people can actually buy now. That's a massive shift from the industry narrative pushed just 2 years ago. While GM and others doubled down on EV-only roadmaps, Ford is quietly rebalancing, hedging its bets between the old and the new. They're not abandoning EVs entirely, but they're acknowledging a truth that rivals refuse to admit publicly. The US market isn't ready for a full electric takeover yet. Infrastructure is lagging, costs are high, and most Americans simply can't afford a $60,000 EV. Ford's strategy, then, is simple but brilliant. Meet people where they are, not where Wall Street wants them to be. And now, that strategy is putting massive pressure on companies that went all in on electric. Rivian, Lucid, and even Tesla are suddenly facing a wave of uncertainty. Ford's aggressive pricing makes their models look overpriced overnight. Tesla's cheapest Model Y now sits tens of thousands above some of Ford's new hybrid SUVs. It's a psychological shift. Consumers are realizing they don't have to spend luxury money to get cutting-edge performance anymore. Behind closed doors, Tesla executives are already preparing their own counter-strategy, and GM is reportedly considering price adjustments across its EV lineup. The domino effect Ford triggered is growing larger by the day, and if it continues, we could be looking at one of the most dramatic resets in modern automotive history. Dealership networks might shrink, legacy pricing models could collapse, and the power balance between automakers could flip entirely. But Ford's not stopping there. The company is reportedly exploring new financing models, offering ultra-low interest plans, longer terms, and even direct online purchases with factory-to-door delivery. They're blending the traditional dealership system with the digital-first experience that consumers have been demanding for years. Essentially, Ford's building the next generation of car buying, a hybrid model that combines convenience, transparency, and speed in a way that could completely dismantle the dealership monopoly that's existed for decades. And that's just the beginning. Because what's coming next could redefine the entire identity of the American auto industry. Ford isn't just looking at pricing or production. They're rewriting the customer experience from the ground up. Insiders are calling it Project Phoenix, a quiet internal initiative focused on creating a seamless, one-click car buying system where customers can configure, finance, and finalize their purchase online in minutes. No more dealer markups, no more endless paperwork, and no more hidden fees. Just transparent pricing and direct delivery straight from the factory floor. If Ford actually pulls this off, it could crush the outdated dealership system that's frustrated car buyers for decades. Dealers have already begun to push back, arguing that Ford's digital shift undermines their business model. But Ford seems unfazed. The company's leadership reportedly told dealers they can either adapt or get left behind. It's a bold stance, one that's sparking tension behind closed doors, but it perfectly fits Ford's new image. The brand willing to burn the old playbook to survive the storm. And it's not just about sales, it's about control. By moving closer to a direct-to-consumer model, Ford gains full command of pricing, marketing, and customer data. They'll know exactly who's buying, what they're buying, and why. That kind of data advantage could give Ford a strategic edge not just over competitors, but over dealers themselves. It's the same playbook that made Tesla so powerful, and Ford's adapting it to their own massive scale. This is no longer just a company selling cars. It's transforming into a tech-driven mobility platform with its own ecosystem. Meanwhile, the numbers are already starting to reflect the chaos Ford unleashed. Industry reports show that within weeks of Ford's announcement, average transaction prices across competing brands began slipping. GM quietly introduced new incentives on Silverado and Tahoe models. Toyota dropped lease rates on its RAV4 and Highlander. Even Stellantis was forced to roll out emergency rebates on Ram trucks, something they hadn't done this aggressively in years. In short, Ford's decision sent every automaker in America into defensive mode. But beneath all that, there's a growing sense of fear spreading through Wall Street and Detroit alike, because this kind of price war can't last forever. Eventually, someone's going to break. Margins are already razor thin, supplier costs remain high, and the pressure to stay competitive is squeezing every automaker to the brink. Some analysts are warning that we're witnessing the beginning of an auto market reset, where only the most financially disciplined and strategically adaptive companies will survive. And while Ford looks strong on the outside, they're not immune to risk. Their EV division still loses billions annually, and the cost of transitioning to new technologies continues to strain the balance sheet. But Ford's betting big that the short-term losses will pay off when they dominate market share by offering what others can't: affordable, high-quality vehicles in a time when Americans are desperate for relief. It's a move that could either crown them the leader of a new automotive era or drag them into another financial storm like 2008. What's interesting, though, is how Ford's strategy resonates beyond just cars. It's tapping into something deeply emotional, a sense that American manufacturing can still fight back. For years, foreign automakers like Toyota and Hyundai have outperformed U.S. brands in quality and pricing. But Ford's new approach feels like a comeback story, a statement that American innovation isn't dead. It just needed a spark. By cutting prices, improving transparency, and refocusing on the everyday buyer, Ford is reigniting that old built Ford tough spirit. But this time, it's economic toughness, not just mechanical. And while competitors are scrambling to respond, consumers are already reacting. Search data shows a massive spike in online traffic for Ford models. Dealers are reporting higher foot traffic. Some locations even saw weekend sales double after the pricing news broke. It's clear, buyers are paying attention. The message has landed: Ford is the first to blink, and everyone else will have to follow. But here's where things start getting even more unpredictable. With automakers slashing prices and flooding the market with incentives, the used car market is beginning to implode. Vehicles that were selling for sky-high prices during the pandemic are now losing value at record speed. Some used trucks have dropped more than 20% in just a few months. That's devastating news for anyone who financed a vehicle at inflated pandemic prices, but it's great news for buyers waiting on the sidelines. The bubble is bursting, and Ford just popped it. And this bubble burst isn't stopping at cars. It's spreading across industries connected to autos. Lenders, insurers, and even parts suppliers are feeling the ripple effects. Loan default rates are creeping up. Insurance companies are reassessing vehicle value models, and suppliers are facing lower production orders as automakers shift to leaner manufacturing cycles. It's all connected, and Ford's aggressive move may have triggered one of the largest economic domino effects in recent automotive history. But the question now is, how far will Ford go? Because sources close to the company are hinting that the next phase of their plan isn't just about cars, it's about mobility. Ford's reportedly preparing to launch new subscription-based ownership programs, flexible leasing models, and pay-per-mile insurance options, all designed to make car ownership more accessible in a struggling economy. This signals a major shift in philosophy. Ford isn't just trying to sell cars anymore. They're trying to own the entire customer journey from financing to maintenance. And according to insiders, that's only scratching the surface of what's coming next, because the final piece of Ford's massive strategy shift is about to hit, and it could permanently alter how the American auto industry operates. Insiders say Ford is preparing to unveil a revolutionary factory-to-driveway initiative that will allow customers to order a vehicle directly from the production line, bypassing dealer delays and extra costs entirely. This system cuts delivery times in half and eliminates hidden markups, meaning you'll pay exactly what Ford advertises: no surprises, no games. This move could be the death blow for traditional dealership networks that rely on inflated prices to stay afloat. And while many dealers are furious, consumers are thrilled. For the first time in decades, Ford is handing power back to the buyer. They're not just selling vehicles anymore. They're selling trust, transparency, and control. That's something Americans haven't seen from a legacy automaker in a very long time. But make no mistake, this is a war, one that will define who survives in the next decade of automotive history. GM is rushing to respond with its own pricing plan. Toyota is accelerating hybrid production to counter Ford's affordability push. And Tesla? They're reportedly revising their strategy again, preparing for an all-out price battle. The industry is now in a volatile standoff where every move counts, and one mistake could send billions down the drain. Ford's decision to flip the entire system wasn't just about sales, it was about timing. The auto market was on the verge of collapse. Consumers were priced out, loans were drying up, and production lines were slowing. Ford saw the storm forming and decided to act first. They chose to reset the market before the market reset them. And in doing so, they've forced every automaker, supplier, and policymaker in America to rethink their next move. The ripple effects are already rewriting the playbook for global trade too. With U.S. automakers slashing prices, international brands will be forced to cut costs to stay competitive. Expect cheaper imports, renegotiated supply contracts, and a flood of new incentives that could spark a global auto price war. It's not just a US meltdown anymore, it's a worldwide shockwave. So, what happens next? Ford's bet could either make them the hero of a new automotive era, or the first casualty of their own revolution. But one thing is absolutely certain. The old way of doing business in the car industry is over. The days of sky-high markups, limited inventory, and dealer control are fading fast. What replaces it will be faster, leaner, and more customer-focused than ever before. And Ford just lit the fuse that's burning the old system down. The US auto market is in total meltdown, and Ford's the one holding the match. But as the dust settles, the question remains. Will this bold gamble cement Ford's legacy as the company that saved American car ownership, or as the one that pushed the entire industry over the edge? Only time will tell. But one thing's clear. This is the biggest shift we've seen in decades, and it's only just beginning. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Ford's industry-shaking move, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more breaking automotive stories, and let me know in the comments. Do you think Ford's strategy is genius or pure madness? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.